Did you really think you could just move your parents into our home without asking me, Ryan? I asked, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and disbelief. Ryan, my husband of 6 years, looked up from his laptop with a smirk that I had grown to despise. Oh, Amelia, don't be so dramatic. It's just for a while, and besides, it's not like you have a say in this. His words felt like a slap in the face. The house, a charming 2-story nestled in a quiet suburb, wasn't just any house. It was the home my grandparents had left me, the place where I'd planned to raise our son, Lucas, away from the toxicity of Ryan's family. You do remember that this house is in my name, right? I retorted, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Ryan's expression faltered, his smugness giving way to a flicker of uncertainty. As our 2-year-old Lucas toddled into the room, I forced a smile for his sake. He was blissfully unaware of the tension, his chubby hands reaching up towards me. Scooping him into my arms, I kissed his forehead, trying to calm the storm inside me. I'm not okay with this, Ryan. Your parents, they've never respected me or our space. Why now? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Ryan shrugged, his indifference stoking my frustration. They're family, Amelia. You wouldn't understand. Family. The word echoed in my mind mockingly. My own family, who ran a small but beloved coffee shop in town, had always been my sanctuary. They were nothing like Ryan's controlling, overbearing parents. The doorbell rang, interrupting our standoff. Through the peephole, I saw them. Ryan's parents, suitcases in tow, ready to invade our life. My heart sank. Fine, Ryan, let them in, but this isn't over, I hissed, handing Lucas to him before opening the door. Amelia, darling, cooed Ryan's mother, sweeping past me without a second glance. His father followed, a stern man who'd barely acknowledged me since our wedding day. As they settled in, making themselves comfortable in my living room, I felt a sense of intrusion that was all too familiar. This was just the beginning, I realized. But as I watched them, something within me shifted. I was done being the compliant daughter-in-law. Bending to their whims, I retreated to the kitchen, my mind racing. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I was ready to fight for it. The following days turned into a blur of unwelcome changes. Ryan's mother, Elaine, had a way of making her presence known in the most suffocating manner. She rearranged my kitchen, criticized my parenting, and treated our home as if it were her own. Lucas shouldn't be eating that, Amelia. It's not healthy, Elaine chided one morning as I prepared Lucas's breakfast. I bit back a sharp retort, feeling the familiar sting of her judgment. He's fine, Elaine. It's just cereal. She'd skied, shaking her head. In our house, we believe in a proper diet. You really should learn. Her comments were like needles, each one pricking at my patience. Ryan, as usual, was of no help, buried in his work and oblivious to the growing tension. One evening, as I put Lucas to bed, Elaine barged into his room. He's still not sleeping through the night? You must be doing something wrong. Her words were a slap in the face, undermining my efforts as a mother. I'm doing the best I can, I snapped, unable to contain my frustration. Elaine's eyes narrowed. Clearly, your best isn't good enough. Maybe if you had a real job and some structure in your life. I felt a surge of anger. This is my house, Elaine. You're a guest here. Don't forget that. Her laugh was cold and dismissive. Oh dear. Ryan never mentioned how delusional you are. This is his house too, and as his mother, I've every right to be here. The following day, I reached my breaking point. I found Elaine in Lucas's room, going through his drawers. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. I'm just organizing. This room is a mess, she replied, not even bothering to look at me. That's it! I want you out of my house now! I exclaimed, feeling a mix of fury and desperation. Elaine turned to face me, her expression one of mock surprise. Your house? Oh, sweetie, you're just the wife. This is Ryan's house too, and he wants us here. I stormed out of the room, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Ryan's betrayal, Elaine's intrusiveness, the way they dismissed my feelings, it was all too much. I was tired of being pushed around, tired of having my home invaded by people who had no respect for me. That night, as I lay in bed, a plan began to form in my mind. I was going to take back control of my life, my home, and my son's future. Ryan and his parents had crossed a line, and it was time for them to learn that I wasn't going to be their doormat any longer. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. A few days later, Ryan dropped a bombshell during an already tense dinner. My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is undergoing renovations, he said, nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I felt my blood boil. Longer? Ryan, we never discussed them staying in the first place, he shrugged, avoiding my gaze. It's just for a few more weeks. What's the big deal? The big deal? The big deal is that your mother treats me like an intruder in my own home. I snapped, my frustration reaching its peak. Elaine, overhearing our conversation, chimed in with her usual condescending tone. Amelia, you're overreacting. We're family. You should be more accommodating. That night, sleep eluded me. Their words echoed in my mind, fueling a growing resolve. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I called my brother, Alex, who had always been my confidant. They're taking over my life, Alex. I can't take it anymore, I confessed, choking back tears. Alex's voice was firm and supportive. Amelia, you need to stand up for yourself. Don't let them bully you. It's your house, your rules. His words were the push I needed. I decided to confront Ryan, but this time I would be prepared. I gathered evidence of Elaine's overbearing behavior, the rearranged kitchen, the disrupted routines, her constant belittling comments. Confrontation day arrived. I waited until Elaine and Ryan were in the living room. We need to talk, now, I announced, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Ryan looked up, surprised by my tone. What's this about, Amelia? It's about your parents, Ryan. Their constant interference, their disrespect for my boundaries. It ends today, I declared, holding up my list of grievances. Elaine scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're just trying to help. Help? By undermining me at every turn? By treating me like I don't matter in my own home? I countered, my anger palpable. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Amelia, they're my parents. We can't just kick them out. No, Ryan. They're guests in my home, and they've overstayed their welcome. Either they leave, or I do. With Lucas, I ultimatumed, my resolve unwavering. The room fell silent, the gravity of my words hanging in the air. I saw the flicker of realization in Ryan's eyes, but it was Elaine who spoke first. You wouldn't dare, she hissed, her facade slipping. Watch me, I retorted, my voice laced with determination. That night, Ryan's parents packed their bags. As they left, Elaine shot me a venomous look. You'll regret this, Amelia. But as the door closed behind them, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was the first step in reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The days following Elaine and her husband's departure were eerily quiet. Ryan's demeanor had shifted to one of cold detachment, his interactions with me minimal and strained. I found solace in the peace of my reclaimed home and the joyous laughter of Lucas. One evening, as Lucas played with his toys, Ryan announced, I've got to go on a business trip. I'll be gone for a few weeks. His tone was indifferent, as if our strained relationship had taken a backseat to his career. Fine, I replied curtly, barely concealing my relief at the prospect of his absence. After Ryan left, the house felt different, liberating even. I started to revert the changes Elaine had imposed, each alteration feeling like a small victory. But the true turning point came when I stumbled upon a series of emails on Ryan's laptop, which he'd carelessly left open. They detailed an affair, an ongoing betrayal that cut deeper than any of his mother's snide remarks. Anger, hurt, and a sense of betrayal churned within me. I decided it was time for Ryan to face the consequences of his actions. I began to meticulously plan my next moves, each step calculated to ensure that Ryan and his family paid for their deceit and manipulation. The first step was to secure my financial and legal standing. I contacted a lawyer, explained my situation, and started the proceedings for what was now an inevitable divorce. Next, I turned my attention to the house, the symbol of my grandparents' legacy and my independence. I reached out to a real estate agent. I want to sell the house, quickly and quietly, I told her. She was taken aback but sensed the urgency in my voice. Are you sure about this, Amelia? This is a big decision, she cautioned. I've never been more sure of anything, I replied with a resolve born of betrayal and a newfound strength. The house went on the market, and within days, offers began to roll in. The thought of Ryan returning to find his precious control stripped away brought a bitter satisfaction. In the midst of this, I reconnected with my family, drawing strength from their support. My parents were appalled by Ryan's behavior and rallied around me and Lucas. "We're here for you, no matter what," my father assured me. As I watched Lucas play, innocent and unaffected by the turmoil, I made a silent vow to protect his happiness at all costs. Ryan's return loomed on the horizon, but I was no longer the woman he had left behind. I was ready to confront him, armed with the truth and a plan to reclaim my life. The day Ryan returned was marked with a tension that hung thick in the air. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, envisioning every possible outcome, yet my heart raced as I heard his key turn in the lock. "Amelia, I'm home," Ryan called out, his voice echoing through the now unfamiliar space. I emerged from the kitchen, my posture rigid. "Welcome back, Ryan. We need to talk." He glanced around, noticing the changes I had made. "What's going on? The house looks different." I didn't flinch. "I sold the house, Ryan. It's no longer ours." His face contorted with disbelief. "You did what? You can't just sell our house without telling me." "It's my house, Ryan, and after what I discovered, I don't think you have a say in it anymore," I said, my voice steady but laced with a simmering anger. He scoffed, trying to regain his composure. "What are you talking about?" "The affair, Ryan. I know everything," I revealed, watching as his facade crumbled. His attempt at denial was weak and short-lived. "Amelia, it's not what you think." "I think it's exactly what it looks like. You betrayed me, our family," I retorted, the hurt evident in my tone. Ryan's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You're overreacting. We can work through this." "There's no we anymore, Ryan. I've filed for divorce," I declared, handing him the papers. The ensuing conversation was a blur of accusations and denials, but I stood my ground. The man I had married was gone, replaced by a stranger fueled by selfish desires. As he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce, I felt a sense of liberation mixed with apprehension. I had taken the first step towards a new life. But the battle was far from over. In the following weeks, the reality of our situation became public. Ryan's parents, once so imposing and confident, were now caught in the crossfire of their son's indiscretions. Their attempts to contact me were met with silence. I had severed all ties, focusing solely on Lucas and the finalization of the divorce. The day of the court hearing arrived. Ryan looked defeated, the weight of his actions finally dawning on him. As the judge granted the divorce and custody of Lucas to me, I felt a sense of justice. Ryan's plea for reconciliation after the hearing fell on deaf ears. "You made your choice, Ryan. Now live with it," I said, turning away from him for the last time. The news of our divorce and Ryan's affair spread, affecting his reputation and relationships. His parents, once so proud and judgmental, were now shunned by those who had once respected them. As I walked out of the courthouse, holding Lucas's hand, I realized that this was not just an end, but a new beginning. A fresh start for me and my son, free from deceit and manipulation. The future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. Life after the divorce felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel into the light. I had regained control, not just of the house, which was now sold, but of my life. Lucas, blissfully unaware of the adult complexities, thrived in the love and stability I provided. My days were busy but fulfilling, with my focus now on rebuilding our lives and managing the coffee shop, which had become my sanctuary. However, the shadow of Ryan and his parents lingered. One day, as I was closing the shop, Ryan appeared, looking disheveled and desperate, a stark contrast to the composed man I had once known. "Amelia, please, I need to talk to you," he pleaded, his eyes searching mine for a hint of the compassion that once existed. I hesitated, the sight of him stirring a mix of emotions. "What do you want, Ryan?" "It's about the alimony and child support," he began, his voice tinged with embarrassment. "I can't afford it. My job, I lost it because of the scandal, and my parents, they're broke too." His words were like a cold splash of reality. "That's not my problem, Ryan. You made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences." "But Amelia, I have nothing left. I'm begging you, for old time's sake." His voice broke, revealing the depth of his despair. I felt a pang of pity, but it was quickly overshadowed by the memory of his betrayal. "Old time's sake? Those times are gone, Ryan. You should have thought about the consequences before you cheated and lied." I turned to leave, but his next words stopped me in my tracks. "I'm sorry, Amelia. Truly I am. I was a fool, and I ruined everything. Please, help me." For a moment, I saw the man I had once loved, vulnerable and regretful. But the pain he had caused was too deep, the betrayal too raw. "I'm sorry, Ryan, but I can't help you. You need to figure this out on your own," I said firmly, closing the chapter of our shared past for good. As I walked away, leaving Ryan standing alone, I felt a sense of closure. The journey had been painful, filled with betrayal and heartache, but it had led me to a place of strength and independence. Life moved on. Lucas grew, his laughter and curiosity filling our home with joy. The coffee shop flourished, becoming a hub of warmth and community. And as for me, I found contentment in the simple pleasures: the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of Lucas's giggles, and the support of friends and family. Ryan and his parents became distant memories, their legacy a cautionary tale of the consequences of betrayal and selfishness. My journey had taught me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. As I locked the shop that evening, I looked up at the sky, its hues of orange and pink signaling the end of another day. I smiled, holding Lucas's hand tightly. Our future was uncertain, but it was bright. We were moving forward, one step at a time, into a new chapter of our lives. With a devious smile, I disabled the security system at Nathan and Elise's house. A simple trip under the guise of a neighborly visit, yet harboring sinister intentions. I let myself in, relishing the opportunity to unravel the peace in their perfect little world. "Aria, what a surprise!" Elise greeted me, her smile tightening ever so slightly. "Hello, dear," I replied, feigning warmth. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by." Nathan emerged, his brow furrowed as he sensed the tension in Elise's voice. "Everything okay?" "Of course," I assured him, patting his arm in mock affection. "Just catching up with my daughter." The lies rolled off my tongue with ease, concealing the bitterness that had festered for years. Sweet, naive Elise, convinced her life was finally on track with Nathan and their son Leo. How little she knew of the darkness I intended to unleash. Leo bounded in, interrupting our strained exchange. "Grandma!" he exclaimed, running into my embrace. I held him tightly, a twisted sense of love mingling with my resentment. This innocent child would soon bear witness to the consequences of his father's hubris. "Why don't we have some lemonade?" Elise suggested, her voice strained. As we settled in the living room, I surveyed their modest abode, a far cry from the opulence I had envisioned for my daughter, all because of Nathan and his feeble aspirations. "So, how's the business going?" I inquired, a serpent's smile playing on my lips. Nathan's expression darkened. "We've hit a few snags, but nothing we can't overcome." "I'm sure," I replied, my tone dripping with false concern. "You know, there are always alternative routes to financial stability." Elise tensed, recognizing the familiar glint in my eye. "Mother, please don't start." "I'm simply offering my guidance, dear," I countered, feigning innocence. "After all, a little darkness might light up the truth." Nathan frowned, oblivious to the underlying threat in my words. Elise, however, paled, her eyes pleading for me to stop. But I had no intention of relenting. Not until I had torn down the illusion of happiness they clung to so desperately. "Aria, I think it's best if you leave," Nathan stated firmly, his patience wearing thin. I rose, my smile unwavering. Of course, I wouldn't dream of overstaying my welcome. As I stepped out, I cast one final glance at the fractured family, reveling in the knowledge that this was merely the beginning. The darkness I had unleashed would consume them, and Elise would have no choice but to return to my embrace. A sinister chuckle escaped my lips as I whispered, "Let the games begin." In the weeks that followed my visit, cracks began to show in Nathan and Elise's once perfect life. A few anonymous calls questioning the integrity of Nathan's business partner were all it took to plant the seeds of doubt. "This is the third complaint this month," Nathan grumbled, tossing the phone aside in frustration. "What's going on?" Elise frowned, her brow furrowed with concern. "Derek wouldn't do anything underhanded. You've known him for years." "I thought so too, but these allegations..." Nathan trailed off, running his hands through his hair. Sensing an opportunity, I chimed in with feigned sympathy. "You know, in situations like these, it's best to explore all options, even if it means considering the unthinkable." Elise shot me a warning look, but I pressed on undeterred. "Have you thought about diversifying your investments? A little risk could yield substantial rewards." "Mother, please," Elise snapped, her patience wearing thin. We're not going to jeopardize our financial security on some harebrained scheme. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and I could see the gears turning in Nathan's mind. A few days later, my phone rang with the call I'd been anticipating. "Aria, it's me." Nathan's voice crackled through the line. "I need your advice on something." I suppressed a triumphant smile. "Of course, dear. What seems to be the trouble?" Nathan hesitated, his words laced with uncertainty. "It's about the business. With all these rumors surrounding Derek, I've been thinking about protecting our assets." "A wise decision," I assured him, my tone dripping with false concern. "In times like these, diversification is key." Thus began my careful manipulation, steering Nathan towards increasingly risky financial ventures under the guise of securing his family's future. All the while, I fanned the flames of suspicion surrounding Derek, driving a wedge between him and my naive daughter. "He's been acting strange lately," I whispered to Elise one day, my voice laced with faux worry. "Secretive phone calls, unexplained absences. I'm just concerned for you and Leo." Elise's eyes widened, and I could see the doubt taking root. "You don't think—" "I'm not accusing anyone, dear," I backpedaled, feigning innocence. "But it's better to be cautious, isn't it?" As the tensions in their household escalated, fueled by my carefully orchestrated lies, I reveled in the unfolding drama. Elise found herself torn between her loyalty to her husband and the societal pressure to trust her mother's guidance. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she confided in me one day, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Seizing the opportunity, I pulled her into a comforting embrace, whispering words of reassurance that only served to deepen her confusion. With each passing day, the rift between Nathan and Elise grew wider, their once strong bond fraying under the weight of my manipulation. Soon I knew the fragile threads holding their family together would snap, and Elise would have no choice but to turn to me for guidance. The thought filled me with a twisted sense of satisfaction. My revenge was unfolding perfectly, and the darkness I had unleashed would consume them all. The weeks dragged on, and the tension in Nathan and Elise's household was palpable. My carefully orchestrated lies had taken root, driving a wedge between them that grew deeper with each passing day. "I don't know what to believe anymore," Elise confided in me one evening, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "The business is suffering, and Nathan is convinced Derek is behind it all." I clucked my tongue in feigned sympathy, fighting back a triumphant smile. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you're going through this." Wrapping an arm around her shoulders, I leaned in conspiratorially. "You know, I've had my suspicions about Derek for a while now." Elise's eyes widened, and I could see the doubt taking root. "What do you mean?" "Well, it's just little things," I began, my voice laced with careful manipulation. "The way he's been distancing himself lately, those secretive phone calls, it all seems rather suspicious, doesn't it?" Elise chewed her lip, her brow furrowed in contemplation. "But he's been Nathan's friend for years. Why would he sabotage the business?" "Money can change people, dear," I said solemnly, tightening my embrace. "And Derek's always had a taste for the finer things." The seed had been planted, and I could see the wheels turning in Elise's mind. With a few well-timed nudges, her trust in her husband would crumble, and she would turn to me for guidance. Sure enough, a few days later, Elise approached me with a haunted expression. "Mother, I need to talk to you about something." I gestured for her to sit, feigning concern. "What's troubling you, dear?" Elise took a deep breath, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I confronted Derek about the rumors, and he completely lost it. He started ranting about how ungrateful Nathan is and how he deserves a bigger cut of the profits." I gasped, my eyes widening in mock horror. "Oh, Elise, that's terrible. You must be so shaken." Pulling her into a tight embrace, I whispered soothingly, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm here for you." As Elise clung to me, her shoulders shaking with barely suppressed sobs, I fought back a twisted grin. The web of lies I had woven was tightening around them, and soon they would all be ensnared in my trap. In the days that followed, the tension between Nathan and Derek escalated, fueled by Elise's accusations and my carefully planted insinuations. Tempers flared, and harsh words were exchanged, culminating in a public confrontation that threatened to tear their partnership apart. "You're making a huge mistake, Nathan," Derek snarled, his face flushed with anger. "Elise is the one you should be questioning, not me." Nathan's jaw clenched, his eyes flickering towards Elise, who stood by my side, her expression a mix of guilt and uncertainty. "Don't listen to him, dear," I murmured, squeezing her hand reassuringly. "He's just trying to deflect blame." As the two men traded heated accusations, each convinced of the other's betrayal, I couldn't help but revel in the chaos I had created. The once unbreakable bond between them was shattering before my very eyes, and Elise was caught in the crossfire, torn between her loyalty to her husband and the societal pressure to trust her mother's guidance. When the dust settled, Nathan stormed off, his face contorted with rage and hurt, leaving Elise to seek solace in my embrace once more. "Oh, sweetheart," I cooed, stroking her hair as she wept. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." But deep down, a twisted sense of satisfaction unfurled within me. The seeds of doubt and mistrust I had sown were bearing bitter fruit, and soon the darkness I had unleashed would consume them all. With each tear that fell, Elise inched closer to the abyss I had so carefully constructed, and I reveled in the knowledge that my revenge was finally within reach. The aftermath of the confrontation between Nathan and Derek was like a wildfire, consuming everything in its path. The once strong bonds that held their family together were reduced to smoldering embers, fragile and easily scattered by the slightest breeze. "I can't believe you would accuse Derek like that," Nathan spat, his eyes blazing with hurt and betrayal. "After everything we've been through together." Elise flinched, her gaze flickering towards me, seeking guidance in the chaos I had so carefully orchestrated. "Nathan, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "You have to understand I was only trying to protect us. By believing the lies your mother has been feeding you?" Nathan shook his head, his jaw clenched in barely restrained anger. "I thought we were a team, Elise. I thought we trusted each other." I fought back a twisted smile, reveling in the fractures I had created within their once perfect union. Elise's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she turned to me, silently begging for reassurance. "Don't listen to him, sweetheart," I murmured, wrapping my arm around her shoulders in a show of maternal support. "He's just lashing out because the truth hurts." Nathan's gaze hardened, his eyes flickering between us with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "You know what? I can't do this right now. I need some space." Before Elise could respond, he had grabbed his keys and stormed out, the door slamming behind him with a resounding finality. Elise crumpled against me, her body racked with sobs as the weight of the situation finally crashed down upon her. "What have I done, Mother? Our family is falling apart." "Shh, sweetheart," I soothed, stroking her hair with a tenderness that belied the twisted satisfaction coiling within me. "This isn't your fault. Nathan is the one who chose to walk away." As Elise clung to me, seeking comfort in the very source of her turmoil, I couldn't help but revel in the darkness I had unleashed. The once unbreakable bonds that held their family together were fraying, and soon they would unravel completely, leaving Elise with no choice but to turn to me for guidance. In the days that followed, the tension in their household was palpable, a heavy silence punctuated by the occasional heated exchange. Leo, their young son, found himself caught in the crossfire, his innocent eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Why is Daddy so angry?" he asked me one day, his small hand clutching mine as we sat in the park. I fought back a sneer, schooling my features into a mask of concern. "Your daddy and mommy are just going through a rough patch, sweetheart, but everything will be all right." Even as the words left my lips, I knew they were a lie. The darkness I had unleashed would consume them all, and there would be no escape from the consequences of my revenge. As the days turned into weeks, the strain began to take its toll on Leo. His once bright demeanor dimmed, and reports from his teacher painted a concerning picture of a child struggling to cope with the turmoil at home. "He's become withdrawn and distracted," the teacher confided in Elise during a parent-teacher conference. "I'm worried about his emotional well-being." Elise's face crumpled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears as she turned to me for support. "Oh, Mother, what have I done? This is all my fault." "Nonsense, dear," I soothed, pulling her into a comforting embrace. "You were only trying to protect your family." But even as the words left my lips, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction unfurl within me. The darkness I had unleashed was spreading, tendrils of doubt and mistrust reaching out to ensnare even the most innocent among them. As we left the school, Elise's shoulders slumped with the weight of guilt and uncertainty, her once unwavering faith in her family's bond shattered by the machinations of my own making. And in that moment, I knew that my revenge was within reach. The fractures I had created were deepening, and soon the darkness would consume them all, leaving Elise with no choice but to turn to me for guidance and solace. The thought filled me with a twisted sense of triumph, and I couldn't help but revel in the bitter fruits of my labor. The once perfect family I had so envied was crumbling before my very eyes, and I savored every delicious moment of their descent into chaos. As the weeks dragged on, the fractures within Nathan and Elise's once perfect family deepened, fueled by the web of lies and manipulation I had so carefully constructed. Elise found herself caught in the crossfire, torn between her loyalty to her husband and the societal pressure to trust her mother's guidance. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she confided in me one evening, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion and unshed tears. I fought back a twisted smile, schooling my features into a mask of concern. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry you're going through this." Wrapping an arm around her shoulders, I leaned in conspiratorially. "You know, I've had my doubts about Nathan's business partner for a while now." Elise's brow furrowed, and I could see the doubt taking root in her mind. "What do you mean, Mother?" "Well, it's just little things," I began, my voice laced with careful manipulation. "The way he's been distancing himself lately, those secretive phone calls, it all seems rather suspicious, doesn't it?" Elise chewed her lip, her gaze flickering towards the framed family photo on the mantelpiece, a relic of happier times. "But Derek has been Nathan's friend for years. Why would he sabotage the business?" "Money can change people, dear," I said solemnly, tightening my embrace. "And Derek's always had a taste for the finer things." As the seed of doubt took root, I could see the wheels turning in Elise's mind. With a few well-timed nudges, her trust in her husband would crumble, and she would turn to me for guidance, seeking solace in the very source of her turmoil. Sure enough, a few days later, Elise approached me with a haunted expression. "Mother, I need to talk to you about something." I gestured for her to sit, feigning concern. "What's troubling you, dear?" Elise took a deep breath, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I confronted Derek about the rumors, and he completely lost it. He started ranting about how ungrateful Nathan is and how he deserves a bigger cut of the profits." I gasped, my eyes widening in mock horror. "Oh, Elise, that's terrible. You must be so shaken." Pulling her into a tight embrace, I whispered soothingly, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm here for you." As Elise clung to me, her shoulders shaking with barely suppressed sobs, I fought back a twisted grin. The web of lies I had woven was tightening around them, and soon they would all be ensnared in my trap. However, even as I reveled in the chaos I had created, a small part of me couldn't help but wonder if I had taken things too far. Elise's anguish was palpable, and the pain etched on her face tugged at the fringes of my conscience, a reminder of the bond we once shared. But those fleeting moments of doubt were quickly overshadowed by the burning desire for revenge that consumed me. Nathan had taken my daughter from me, robbing me of the control and influence I had once wielded over her life. And for that, he would pay. As the days passed, Elise's suspicions towards her husband deepened, fueled by my carefully planted insinuations and the whispers of doubt that had taken root in her mind. She began to question every move Nathan made, every decision he took, until the once unbreakable trust between them lay shattered at our feet. "I can't do this anymore, Mother," she confided in me one evening, her voice trembling with anguish. "I feel like I don't even know my own husband anymore." Seizing the opportunity, I pulled her into a comforting embrace, whispering words of reassurance that only served to deepen her confusion. "It's going to be all right, sweetheart. I'm here for you no matter what." But even as the words left my lips, I couldn't deny the twisted sense of satisfaction that unfurled within me. The darkness I had unleashed was spreading, tendrils of doubt and mistrust reaching out to ensnare even the strongest of bonds. And in that moment, I knew that my revenge was within reach. The fractures I had created were deepening, and soon the darkness would consume them all, leaving Elise with no choice but to turn to me for guidance and solace. The thought filled me with a twisted sense of triumph, and I couldn't help but revel in the bitter fruits of my labor. The once perfect family I had so envied was crumbling before my very eyes, and I savored every delicious moment of their descent into chaos. Little did I know, however, that the very darkness I had unleashed would soon come back to haunt me, casting its shadow over my own life in ways I could never have foreseen. As the weeks dragged on, the fractures within Nathan and Elise's once perfect family deepened, fueled by the web of lies and manipulation I had so carefully constructed. Little did I know, however, that the very darkness I had unleashed would soon come back to haunt me, casting its shadow over my own life in ways I could never have foreseen. It all began with a single phone call, the shrill ring piercing the silence of my living room like a knife. "Hello?" I answered, my voice laced with a false sweetness that had become second nature. "Aria, it's Nathan." His tone was clipped, devoid of the warmth I had grown accustomed to hearing. "We need to talk." A frisson of unease rippled through me, but I quickly schooled my features into a mask of concern. "Of course, dear. What seems to be the trouble?" There was a pause, and when Nathan spoke again, his words were laced with a steely resolve that sent a chill down my spine. "I know what you've been doing, Aria. The lies, the manipulation. It all stops now." My breath caught in my throat, but I quickly rallied, feigning innocence. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb with me," Nathan snapped, his voice rising in anger. "You've been sabotaging my business, spreading rumors about Derek, poisoning Elise's mind against me, all because you can't stand to see her happy without your control." I opened my mouth to protest, but Nathan plowed on, his words hitting me like a physical blow. "Well, it ends here, Aria. I've gathered enough evidence to expose your actions to the world, and I won't rest until you face the consequences of what you've done." A twisted smile curved my lips as I realized the depth of his foolishness. "You think you can take me on, Nathan? You're gravely mistaken." "We'll see about that," he growled, and the line went dead. In the days that followed, Nathan's threats proved to be more than idle words. Piece by piece, the carefully constructed web of lies I had woven began to unravel, exposing the depths of my manipulation and deceit. Elise, her eyes wide with disbelief and hurt, confronted me, her voice trembling with barely restrained anger. "How could you, Mother? How could you do this to me, to our family?" I opened my mouth to deny the accusations, but the words died on my lips. As Nathan and Derek strode into the room, their expressions grim. "It's over, Aria," Nathan stated, his jaw set in a hard line. "We have all the evidence we need to expose your actions to the world." In that moment, the gravity of my actions crashed down upon me, and I felt a strange sense of resignation wash over me. The darkness I had unleashed had consumed me, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. "You'll never understand," I spat, my voice dripping with venom. "You took my daughter away from me, Nathan. You robbed me of the control and influence I once had over her life." Elise recoiled as if struck, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Is that what this was all about, Mother? Power and control?" I met her gaze, unflinching. "You were mine, Elise, and I couldn't stand to see you slip through my fingers." The words hung heavy in the air, a bitter testament to the depths of my twisted obsession. Nathan and Derek exchanged a knowing glance, their expressions hardening with resolve. "It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions, Aria," Nathan stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. In the days and weeks that followed, my world crumbled around me. The evidence of my misdeeds was laid bare for all to see, and the once revered matriarch found herself ostracized and scorned by the very community she had once ruled. Legal battles ensued, leaving me bound by court orders and financial penalties, a mere shadow of the formidable force I had once been. And through it all, Elise's gaze remained haunted, her trust in me irreparably shattered by the depths of my betrayal. As I sat alone in the ruins of my once proud life, the bitter taste of defeat lingering on my tongue, I couldn't help but reflect on the twisted path that had led me here. The darkness I had unleashed in pursuit of revenge had ultimately consumed me, leaving me isolated and powerless. And in the depths of my despair, a single chilling realization dawned upon me. The true victim of my machinations had been myself, ensnared by the very web of lies and manipulation I had so carefully woven. In the aftermath of my downfall, the world I had once known became a twisted, unfamiliar place. The very community that had once revered me now scorned my existence, their whispers and sidelong glances a constant reminder of the depths to which I had fallen. "Did you hear about Aria?" they would murmur, their voices laced with a mixture of pity and disdain. "Such a shame, really, to think she would stoop so low." I would grit my teeth, fighting back the urge to lash out, to reassert the dominance and control that had once been my birthright. But the legal shackles that bound me were unyielding, a constant reminder of the consequences of my actions. And through it all, Elise's gaze remained haunted, her trust in me irreparably shattered by the depths of my betrayal. Try as I might, I could not shake the guilt that coiled within me, a bitter reminder of the bond I had so carelessly severed. "How could you, Mother?" she had whispered, her voice trembling with anguish. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" The words echoed in my mind, a constant refrain that played on a loop, taunting me with the gravity of my mistakes. But even in the depths of my despair, a twisted part of me could not help but cling to the hope that someday, somehow, Elise would find her way back to me. That the darkness I had unleashed would ultimately fade, leaving us to pick up the tattered threads of our relationship and weave them anew. It was a fool's hope, I knew, but it was all I had left. As the days turned to weeks, Nathan and Derek's relentless pursuit of justice began to bear fruit. One by one, the lies and manipulations I had so carefully constructed were exposed, laid bare for the world to see. Aria Blackwood, you stand accused of orchestrating a campaign of deceit and manipulation aimed at undermining the personal and professional lives of Nathan and Derek, the judge intoned, his voice ringing with authority. "How do you plead?" I squared my shoulders, defiance burning in my gaze. "Not guilty." A ripple of murmurs swept through the courtroom, but I held my head high, unwilling to show even a hint of remorse for my actions. In the end, however, the weight of the evidence against me was overwhelming. Damning financial records, incriminating emails, and a litany of witness testimonies all painted a damning picture of my calculated deception. "Aria Blackwood, you have been found guilty on all counts," the judge pronounced, his gaze stern. "You are hereby sentenced to a term of imprisonment, as well as financial restitution to the victims of your crimes." The words rang in my ears like a death knell, shattering the last vestiges of the life I had once known. As the guards led me away, I caught a glimpse of Nathan and Derek, their expressions a mixture of relief and grim satisfaction. And in that moment, I knew that my downfall was complete. The very darkness I had unleashed in pursuit of revenge had consumed me, leaving me a mere shell of the formidable force I had once been. In the months that followed, I watched from the confines of my prison cell as Nathan and Elise began the arduous process of rebuilding their lives. The road was long and fraught with challenges, but through it all, they clung to each other with a tenacity that both inspired and infuriated me. "We're a team, Elise," Nathan would murmur, his voice thick with emotion. "No matter what life throws our way, we'll face it together." And Elise, her eyes shining with a newfound strength, would nod, her fingers intertwined with his in a silent vow of unity. It was a bitter pill to swallow, watching the very family I had sought to destroy rise from the ashes of my betrayal, stronger and more resilient than ever before. And as the walls of my prison cell closed in around me, I couldn't help but wonder if the price I had paid for my pursuit of revenge was truly worth it. But even in my darkest moments, a twisted part of me could not help but cling to the hope that someday, somehow, I would find a way to reclaim what I had lost. That the darkness I had unleashed would ultimately fade, leaving me to pick up the tattered threads of my life and weave them anew. It was a fool's hope, I knew, but it was all I had left.